Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hi there, it's Kelly Covert, and you're listening to In Her Voice. And boy, do I have a juicy one for you today. My guest this week on the podcast is Christina Glickman, and we are digging into unapologetic confidence. And oh my gosh, I consider myself to be a confident person, and this is next level confidence. This is the confidence I want for every single woman in my life, every single person that is hearing these words right now. Yes, I mean you. I want this level of confidence for you. And the cool thing about it is simple, although not necessarily easy to do it and to practice it. So let me tell you a little bit about Christina. Christina Glickman is a mother, speaker, and author of the new best-selling book, Extra: The Art of Being, a book meant for the person who's looking for permission and inspiration to be themselves. She is also a community builder through her successful membership program created for strong, loving, purpose-driven women that are looking to step into life with unapologetic confidence. She speaks to groups across the country on unapologetic confidence and the permission to just be. Her powerful message on mindset inspires people to intentionally show up for themselves every single day. Her life's work is to help other women awaken their extra and unleash their best self. Christina is based in Chicago and is also an entrepreneur in the clean beauty movement as an advocate for Beauty Counter. You can find her most days working hard with her family right next to her, exactly how she likes it. And you are just going to love Christina. She inspires me. She inspires me to own every single bit of myself, and I hope that you find that too. Let's get right to it. Christina Glickman, I'm so excited to have you on In Her Voice. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, so today we're going to talk about the super juicy topic of unapologetic confidence. And I was on your website as I do before I sit down with people to interview them. And I was telling you before we got started, it's like feels so exciting and like almost dangerous, like dangerous and sort of like roller coaster, your adrenaline is pumping. And I kind of wanted to dig into that because I consider myself to be pretty confident. It's not something that I struggle with. And yet, even as I was on your website and you were talking about being extra and just really owning yourself, like it felt dangerous to me. Can we talk about that first?
Yes, I love that. I've never heard it described as dangerous, and that is now my favorite thing I've ever heard. I think truly when you say that, the first thing that strikes me is I show up as me. And so the vibe and energy you get from opening up that website is really how I feel and how I try to project what's on the inside of me, which is authentically being myself. And while I feel like those words are generic and cliche and we hear it all the time, I will go back to a million times that showing up every day as ourself is very exhausting to do something that's not that. And so what I mean by that is probably what you get from, just kind of looking at the website is energy and color and vibration, because that's the kind of person I am. But truly, when you break it open, it's really about the deeper part of who we are and how I believe that walking through life with unapologetic confidence is really the thing that can unleash us into our best self, because it's really difficult, as you know, to show up every day when you're not yourself, because that pursuit or that chase or that constant drive isn't really honoring the person you are. And ultimately, I feel like will only get us so far. And it's a process. There's no end game here. I'm in a constant state of building myself. And so there is no, I don't like to say, oh, in 3 quick steps, I'm going to get you from here to here. I don't think life works that way, to be honest. I think it's a constant journey and evolution, and we are changing and evolving and hopefully repeating.
Yeah. I don't think I want to add on to what you said about, I don't think life is like that. I don't think authentic life is like that. I think formulaic life can be like that. And that's why we feel so empty when we chase that.
Well, it's so interesting that you said that. And, again, I always just show up with pure heart intention, and you just get what comes out of my mouth as it comes. And the real truth is that I've been on this evolution and this journey about unapologetic confidence. And what started out for me, I think, was a little bit of like, badassery and showing up and crushing stuff, and really has transformed into me realizing that unapologetic confidence comes from a community of care. It comes from surrounding yourself with other people that share stories and connect and lift you and champion you and all these other things. And you talking about formulaic, and I've realized in the journey of this and wanting to sort of, share with women and help, is that what I have to offer as myself is not formulaic. I don't talk to someone and then put them into a box and say, well, these are the 3 things you can do. I think authentically we have to get to know one another and figure out what drives us, hopefully that we can become more inspired versus intimidated by our own potential. And I've learned that living and breathing through it is the most authentic way to be, because I don't want people to show up in their lives like me. For anybody that ends up looking me up, I've got crazy spiky blonde hair and I wear big shoulder pads, and I kind of appear loud in that way because that's who I am. But, the last thing on earth I want is anyone to walk through their life like me. And I just think sometimes women need permission and validation to understand that really the best gift we can give to this world is showing up as ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, my listeners know that is what I preach on this podcast. I mean, that we need people showing up as themselves, because, like, you are the only person who can be Christina Glickman, and I'm the only person who can be Kelly Covert. And that is so valuable. I want to go back a little bit and talk about your journey, because I'm guessing that you weren't always unapologetically confident.
Correct.
How did you get from there, wherever there was, to here? Like, what was your path?
Sure. When people say to me, wow, you're just so confident, the first thing I say to them is, I think I'm confident because I don't know. I'm confident because I have the ability to say, I don't know everything. I'm not a master. I show up to the table and give the best that I can, but I am able to disarm myself quickly. And I think that comes from a season of growth of, I wasn't always this way. I have a background that comes from working in an advertising agency, which is kind of quick paced and I don't know, kind of cutthroat, to be honest. And so you always sort of had to come to the table and with a little bit of fake it till you make it, right? Because you come out of college and you're young and you've got to show up to these meetings. So you start to walk with this air of confidence a little bit. But I think truly for me, the journey that it's been on is that I've slowly discovered that the moment that I'm able to be in, whether it's a Zoom, a chat, a podcast, a meeting, whatever it is, if I come into a room and I can truly just share what I know, learn, listen, be open, the more confident I get. Because, we all talk about imposter syndrome so often. And, how scary would it be if I were to get on this podcast with you and I was going to present myself as the guru to tell you the 10 ways that your life's going to be, fabulous. Well, I can't do that. That's just, again, I don't think that's how it works. And so the journey for me with confidence has really been about embracing, I'm not perfect. I'm all about progress, not perfection. I'm okay just being me. I'm, self-love, and that I'm deserving of abundance and affluence and all these things that I think we all try to practice, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's intention. It's trying every day to show up and do a little bit more. And, the word extra for me isn't about, the aggressive, bold outfits. The word extra for me is about doing a little bit more each day that I can. So if you tell me to go to 10, I might go to 10 and a half. And so it's just about doing that for me and no one else. And then when I get to lay my head down on a pillow at night, I get to say, how did I do today? And some days are sucky, the other days are suckier, but I know I get the chance to start over the next day. And I hopefully try to intentionally show up for myself, because I do know, especially as a woman, we pretty much show up for everyone else but ourselves most days. And so if the intention isn't there, then you get a little lost. And you get a little lost about who you are. You don't feel quite as confident. And I'm sure you agree this cycle continues.
Yeah. I hear all of what you're saying. And actually, I thought of a funny story. I'm a musician and I went to music school. And when you're in music school, you have to pretend like you're snobby about music. Like, oh,
right.
I don't really like Tchaikovsky. It's
right.
too cheesy, whatever. And I always struggled with that because like I wanted to, pretend like I knew what I was talking about. But, I really did love all of the cheesy stuff. And I listened to it all of the time. And, it's almost like, understanding that if we are trying to fit into a certain box of what we think is right, it's never going to feel good if it's not true. It's just never going to feel good. And I think that so many women face that. I call it the rub, right? The rub of trying to be something that you're not, or of thinking you have to be something that you're not. And, I want to talk about being intimidated because I think that this is twofold. You mentioned when you were first talking, and I wrote it down because it really got me, this idea of being intimidated by our own potential. But what I want to start with first is how women can be intimidated by when they see other women standing up in themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think that's where it begins.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why for me, I feel like I'm on this lifelong journey to kind of touch one woman at a time that can walk into their authentic self, because when they do that, everybody else looks around and they say, well, she can do that. I can do that too. Yes. And as simple as it sounds, it's the truth. And we need that more than ever. And, it's, of course, staying in our own lane and not looking around for either, again, permission to do something or validation is so difficult. And what ends up happening, sadly, because we're human, is that we see what everybody else is doing, and then we don't feel good enough, we don't feel pretty enough, we don't feel smart enough. Whatever the case is, that's just the real. It's how it works. And it takes so much guts to be able to say, no, that's not me. I won't be intimidated by that. And I'm going to just be true to myself. And that's where I think the power of community lies. Because if we're trying to do it alone, it's really tough. But if we have whatever community you might have, or a book club or friends or whatever it is, to say, no, you got this down. You're okay. You're all right. But when we sit by ourselves and we view others, it's very intimidating. And I know myself personally, it also depends on the mood I'm in. There's times where something very inspirational crosses my desk, and I'm either in the mood of like, oh, this is amazing. I'm so inspired and I'm going to go crush my goals today. And other times I'm not in the right mindset. And I'm like, I'm going to go watch Netflix. Like, I can't do that. I'm not going to be that person. And so I think that spiral is very natural. But if you have folks that you're, are accountable with, that you have a community of care, that you are around people that want, I always say, filter your day and see who are you surrounding yourself with. Because when you look around, hopefully if you're surrounding yourself in a safe place where you have this, energetic exchange of trust, that you're allowed to feel and be envious or jealous of something, but it doesn't paralyze you. And I think that's the difference. I'll have people say to me often, well, you're just so confident. And I always say, I'm human. So there are days that I don't feel that way. But the difference is it doesn't stop me from doing what I want to do. I feel it, but I keep going. And I still show up as me, even if I'm uncomfortable, unsettled, and afraid. And truth be told, I've been in such a growth mode over the past couple of years that I'm uncomfortable most days. But I know that means that I'm growing.
Thank you for saying that. I think we need to hear that, because I think that, we can look at a woman like you and be like, well, she's got it all figured out.
Oh my goodness, bless you. Are you kidding me? I wake up every day slightly with a stomach ache of like, okay, what's today? What am I doing? Where am I pushing myself? I have conversations with my husband, like, what am I doing? And it's funny because the groups that I do have, I think they appreciate, because I'll show up on a call and I'm like, man, I am struggling. And it's the only way I know how to operate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know another way to be other than myself. And like I said, it's so powerful for us collectively as women to see each other in that light. I mean, the last thing we want is someone that comes swaggering into a room and thinking that they own it and making the rest of us feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, that is not, and we know it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's just, it's awful. Because if anything right now, especially with so many women leaving the workforce with COVID and all these things, we need to help each other.
Yeah.
And not being honest in our own struggles and our own, and I always say that if you don't feel like you can be the light giver right now because you're struggling, then find a place to find it. But if you can, then give it away, right? Like, if you're in a good place right now, bring someone with you.
I love that so much. And it's not hard.
No.
To do that. It's not hard to do that. So why do you think we are intimidated by ourselves, by our own potential? That's what you said. Like,
yeah.
I think about that and I feel the truth of that, but I don't know if I can put it into words.
Well, I think there's a few things, depending on your own character. But one is, some women are afraid of their own success. And what really happens if they dial it up and they step into their greatness? What happens? One, there's an issue of people don't really like to see us change. And I've experienced it myself. People think I should be XYZ, and then I'm stepping out and doing something else. And you get a little bit of a side eye, a little raised eyebrow of like, well, you've changed, and what are you doing? And all of those things nick away at our confidence to keep going. Because we, like it or not, from the time we were young, we're given certain titles and badges. Are you an athlete? Are you a bookworm? Are you quiet? Are you the town mayor? And those things stick with us. And I think that they have a dramatic impact as to how we walk into the future. And it's hard to break free of them. And I think that if we are willing to truly, I always say, what's the consequence to the action holding you back? And the example I give is my book. So I did this book, and I will say full-heartedly, I did it for me, right? And I had to do it that way because what if the book comes out, it totally sucks. The only people that like it are my friends and family who buy it because they feel bad for me. And I thought, so what's the worst case there? My husband still loves me. My kids still love me. People that are in my life that are good and kind, they'll still love me. So the consequence to that action to me is one that it's worth taking, right? It's not life or death. So I always try to use that filter, which is the things that we're afraid of and we're intimidated by. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? No, here's the other thing I say often, which is nobody cares about you. I mean, they really don't.
So true.
They really don't. So let's say that, I did this podcast with you and it was horrible. And I don't know, I said some bad, I don't know. Let's pretend it was horrible. So what? I mean, no one's dying, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal. And we put so much weight and pressure on ourselves. And the reality is that, everybody is focused on their own lives. And so they might think about you for 3 seconds, but they're going to move on. And so whether it's showing up on social media and worried that you've got a double chin or whatever it might be, no one cares about you. They're worried about themselves. So allowing somebody else's power, I feel, is like handing over the driver's license to your life and saying, I care so much about what you think, so I'm not going to step into my own life. And so, going back to your original question about being intimidated by your own potential, I would say that you dissect it and you think about, what are your limiting beliefs about yourself? What is really holding you back? Are you afraid of success? Are you afraid of others judging you? Are you afraid of the rejection, failure, fear? What is it? And I think when you really boil it down and you realize that, again, for me, I always go back to, is everybody in my world safe and loved? And if they are, I can pretty much do anything. And so that releases me from the fear and the pressure and having to know everything. And how do I get A, B, C, D? I don't need to know that. I just need to know what I'm doing next. And do I know it's going to be right? I actually don't know. But I do know that for me personally, what's not okay is not moving. Because to me, movement is hope.
I love that. I one of the things that popped into my head, and honestly, it's my inner voice talking, and I'm not sure why that this is coming up, but I feel like we often associate confident women with women who want to be in the spotlight, who want to, quote unquote, draw attention to themselves. You know, like it's almost like there's this negative connotation to being confident. And I think that keeps people from wanting that. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I love, you have great questions. I love that so much, because one of my themes for a month of this program that I do is about, committing the crime of shining. Because here's the thing, for whatever reason, as women, we are taught that if I accept my strengths, if I talk about them, if I share them, that is aggressive, boisterous, pompous, whatever you name it. So it's part of the reason too that most of us can't even accept a compliment without pushing it away. And so the word confidence also does not necessarily mean kind, right? It's got all these negative associations with it, which again, I'm trying to break up the narrative on that. And being confident doesn't mean you want the spotlight on you. In fact, again, if your viewers were to see pictures of me and sort of a little bit of my aggressive outfits, etc., you'd say, well, of course, you walk into a room, you want all the eyes on you. And I can't tell you, in my deepest heart, it's the last thing that I want. But here's the thing. It's how I show up. I can't be another way. And so I tried for years to tone it down. It's not who I am. I don't feel good about myself when I try to show up another way. And so just because it makes, not you personally, but you feel a certain way, that's your problem. That's not mine. And so I'm going to show up throughout this life as me. If you think it means I need a spotlight, if you think it means I'm trying to outshine you or take a light off you, that's for you to work on. That's really how I feel about it. Because that's the problem, which is, if somebody says to you, oh, your podcast was so great, and you say, well, thank you. That's you receiving it in a way that's acknowledging that it is great, which is why I think it's hard for women to accept any compliments, because we have to believe in our hearts it's true. How many times have you said to a girlfriend, oh my gosh, you look so great today. Oh, stop. Or no, I don't. And that's terrible. It's not easy. So I've worked on for a long time now to say, thank you, I received that. It sounds so silly, but it's true. And what we should be able to do is celebrate our strengths without that meaning that I'm taking away your shine. It's almost as if we celebrate someone else, then that means that we're taking the light off someone else. That's not true. We should all be able to celebrate. I can tell you a million things I'm either not good at or working on, but the second you try to talk about what I am good at, we all sort of like cringe and curdle and be like, ugh, which, how is that teaching our children?
Oh, well,
it's
there's
horrible,
that. Yeah. Well, and there's enough light for all of us.
Yes. Yes. Right. I mean, that's the other, that mindset of it. I mean, here's the thing. Nothing more gives me more joy than shining lights on other people. That is the best thing in the world, like celebrating people's strengths and who they are and what they're doing. But here's the thing. I shouldn't have to diminish my shine to make you feel better.
That's right. That's right. I love this so much because I wrote a book last year, a planner called the Enoughness Planner. And part of it has daily enoughness pages, which are just simple little things to help you cultivate that feeling of being good enough. And it's 3 things. The last thing every day is listing the things that you're proud of yourself for. Because we seek that validation externally, but we so rarely give it to ourselves because we've been taught that if we do that, we're bragging or we have a big head or whatever, like all of these things. And so I've discovered the more I sit with what I'm proud of myself for, the more I can find and the better I feel about the little things and the big things that I'm doing.
Yeah. I love that, and I do know that you have that because I've seen it, and I love the wording around it, and also the idea that it's pushing me towards reflection, because we also don't give ourselves the space to do it, right?
That's right.
So I do love that about the work that you've done, because it forces you to reflect.
So speaking of sort of like these practical ways that we can start doing this, you have a beautiful framework, not a formula, a framework for sort of starting to begin to step into this idea of unapologetic confidence. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I think, again, what I've learned, because again, I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to help others set intentions to do that, because I don't think it's a quick road. I don't think it's, an easy thing to share in a way that makes sense for everybody. But for me, it's usually about developing a little bit of a theme for a month. Like, for example, one we're talking about right now is designing you, and the idea that, you're never designed, right? You're just kind of stepping into your story every day. And so we talk about the foundation for it being, how do you walk into your life every day with intention? How do you step into either the message you're trying to portray so that your current self is stepping into your future self? And so we kind of dissect down some details about, well, what do you do every day to show up for yourself as a first step? Like, and very small, and how you define that success. Success for you can truly be, I got out of bed today. That's where I'm at.
You can be proud of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's no competition here.
Right.
And so, that's the first thing, which is, like I said, when I first started this, I thought I was much more on a path of like I said, badassery confidence. And I really realized that truly I've developed this, I call it the extra love army. And it's become this thing of, we really don't get to walk in unapologetic confidence alone, and that we need others around us. And so when I think about the framework for it, in my group here, we talk about the cake, the frosting, and the sprinkles. And I frame it in that way because in another life, I also used to have a cookie company. And so I'm a baker. And we talk about the cake being the foundation, and the frosting being about vision setting and creating momentum. And then the sprinkles is about, commitment, consistency, and community. And we try to break it down like that. But like you said, there's no formula. It's as simple as, wanting to make sure, and it depends. Some people love to journal. Other people like to audit their day and put down what gives them joy. Other people decide, what, I'm going to do one thing for me today that is helping me build a business. Other people don't have any clue what their story is. And so what I realized very quickly is that it's not a formula. It's like custom built, because we're all so different. And I think truly, before we can ever realize some of our dreams, I always say we have to look backwards before we can move forward. And what we end up finding out, the first thing that we always talk about is, tell me about some things that are stopping you from going forward. And forward is defined by you.
What I really hear you saying, Christina, is that we have to ask ourselves what we need in order to feel confident, in order to be confident, in order to embody our authenticity. We have to ask ourselves, or like I like to say, we have to ask our inner voice, because she will always know. And then step 2, we have to be willing to do the thing. It's one thing to desire confidence. It's another thing to go after it. Don't you think?
I do. And I really think that that's where it comes to, we talk about it, but we don't do it. And so that's the question where then I stop someone and say, well, this is the difference between being around with me right now than someone else's. I'm not going to let you not do it, right? Yeah. I always say, like, you're here for a reason. You showed up to this group because you obviously wanted more for yourself. And so how are we going to do that? Because, and that's why I also, I have such a hard time with New Year's, the beginning of the new year, because I feel that sadly it sets us up for a lot of failure. And the idea that the first week of the new year sets precedent to how your year is going to go. And are you doing all the things? Are you cleansing and working out? And are you doing... And again, I don't think it works like that. I think
Yeah.
it's how do you show up for today? And did you do a good job? Because tomorrow's a different day. And the last thing that any of us need in the current state of our world is another reason to feel bad.
That's right.
None
We're
of us
not
need
broken.
that. No.
We don't need fixing.
Oh, I love you. I say that all the time. I'm not trying to fix someone.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be a better version. I love that you just said that. Absolutely.
Well, that's really been hitting me hard this year. Is, you know, we're recording this in January. It's not going to come out until spring. But, you know, this January, I'm seeing so much of this. Well, these are my goals, and there's nothing wrong with having goals.
Right.
As long as those goals are coming from a place of loving who you are already.
Yeah. Well, right. And I also say too, please know that you're probably not going to make half of them, right? Meaning
That's right.
that if you go into it thinking, you know, I think we all white knuckle it, right? And think, I've got to hold on to this, or if I don't work out this day, or if I don't do this in my job and I don't promote and I don't, that is so terrible to wake up every day to feel that way. And I think that, again, even though intellectually women know this, they want permission. They want permission from others. And that's where the power of community comes in. They want stories to be shared. You know, nothing feels better than when you talk to a girlfriend and they had a crappy day with you and they weren't a great mom today and they didn't do great at work and they didn't, like, again, you know, not that misery loves company, but you don't want to feel alone. You know, and so much of whether it be social media or whatever it might be, even intellectually, when we know it's a highlight reel, it can feel very lonely.
Yeah. So good. So good, Christina. I want to circle back around to something you said at the very beginning. And it was using the word honor. You said, I want to honor myself. And that is something that I am committed to in my own life this year, like at the deepest level. In fact, I have it written. I have a little whiteboard in my studio and I have it written up on there to remind myself that I am allowed to take untraditional paths. That's one of the things I'm honoring, that I am allowed to rest when I need it, that I am allowed to tap into my strengths, even though they might not look like strengths to the outside, right. Honoring what might be perceived as weaknesses as my strengths. But what does honoring yourself look like for you?
Honoring myself for me looks like when things aren't going my way or I'm in the heat of a moment, making the decision that is best for me and not someone else. It means that I am taking a path that I know the consequences aren't always easy. It means that I go back to my core values when I need to. And like examples I use is everything from if you have children and there's been question of remote versus hybrid versus, you know, we live in such a world where judgment runs free. And it's honoring myself is taking a moment and saying, what are my core values? And now I need to walk in that path. And that's not easy. It's not easy. And so that's how I feel I honor myself. And there's plenty of days that I don't, or that I say yes to something that I should have said no to because I didn't have the boundaries. Or it's, not being present in moments when I know I should have been. And I think it's a daily practice. Yeah. And I know 100%. When I'm not honoring myself, right? Because I don't feel good.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Oh, I love this conversation so much. And the beautiful thing about you and this concept of unapologetic confidence that you're bringing to the table is that you, and I think we mentioned it, have written a book about this. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Sure. So the book was actually written as a way for me to share myself, I think. I discovered that really my life's work was to talk to women, as generic as that sounds. And I thought the best way for me to do that was to share my own stories about how I think that confidence for me came into my life in the way that I, dress and show up in the world, because it's a little bit like a coffee table book. So, and then my own personal quotes that I've said for years, and then stories about each of them. And again, the word extra really came from how do you step into your life every day with a little bit more of yourself? And again, the stories revolve around everything from, the loss of my parents to my children to going back to running a marathon to whatever it is, but just that gives you a little bit of a taste of sort of how I think, and I say this, how I got to be the way that I am, but I say not because I think I'm special and all that great, but just as a reflection of who I am and the journey that I'm on. And hopefully, like I said, it will give permission to other women to come along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that, permission and inspiration,
Yeah.
right? Because when we see another woman doing it, if you can see it, that means it's in you.
Mm-hmm.
That is possible for you. And then if people want to take a deeper dive, tell us a little bit about your community.
Sure. So my community is just called Extra. It's a membership program. It's a monthly program. And basically we gather 2 times a month live. And then also you have a member portal where I have videos that I film each month on a certain theme. And to be honest, I have been just blown away by the community. And I always say, it's not me. The magic is these incredible women that I feel like are rainbows that have fallen from the sky. And, I like to think that good people attract good people. And so it's a special place. And everything, if you ever want anything more about me, can really just be found on my Instagram.
Mm-hmm. And we'll put links to
Sure.
all of those things so people can check it out and connect with you. Christina, my final question to all of my guests, what is your inner voice saying to you these days?
Honestly, that I'm scared, that things are getting too big for me. Should I be playing in this space? And then the other side of the inner voice is saying, do what you need to do for today and figure it out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Step by step.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we get where we want to go. It's just step by step, putting one foot in front of the other. Christina, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. This is something I tell my listeners all the time, and I really want to say that to you too, and to everyone who's listening. We need you. And I so appreciate you, Christina, that you have the courage to stand and honor yourself and be yourself as an example to us, but also just being there with us, being in it with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Here's my question for you. What would it look like for you to be unapologetically confident? It's scary. I get it. I like what Christina was saying about how we can often be intimidated by our potential. I see so many women, myself included sometimes, let me just be honest, that are intimidated by our potential, that think, who am I to even have dreams like that? Who am I to even think that I might be able to have a successful business and be a mom and all of the things? And I just challenge you to dig into that. Sure, it's okay to be intimidated. That's a real feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. But is it holding you back? I think the key is be intimidated because it's powerful, because you are powerful, and take the tiny steps anyway, and keep moving into that potential. That's where the power is. And that is what I love helping you do. I want you to feel empowered to align with your potential instead of being scared of it, instead of hovering behind it or cowering behind it. Maybe that's a better word. I want you to align with that. And the way to do that is to take your desires, take those ideas, take the things that have been planted inside of your heart and create a plan to move forward on them. And that's exactly what I would help you do in an idea hour. And so if you are really feeling the power of your ideas and the power of your desires, but maybe you're feeling a little bit intimidated by them as well, to the point of feeling overwhelmed or to the point of feeling like you just don't know where to start, let's do it. Let's get clear. Let's create a plan for you that's going to feel fun and energizing and exciting and confident, unapologetically so. So you can move forward into your purpose-filled life that you were put here to live. If this sounds like something that you want, you can check out my website, kellycovert.com/ideas. You can sign up for an hour right there. I promise you, you will not regret it. It is such a fun hour and it's so productive and it's so powerful. So again, that's kellycovert.com/ideas. Now I want you to remember, you matter. Your ideas matter. Your potential is limitless. You are worthy.